Tonight's tales of the unexpectedly mundane. Man opens umbrella, defies rain. Cat stares at wall for 6 hours, philosophical breakthrough expected. And toast burns, existential crisis in kitchen. Plus, coming up, we'll have an exclusive interview with the world's oldest hamster. He'll be discussing his memoirs, My Wheel, My Life. Those are the headlines. Push the British-shaped button.
And a news bang, unveiling the cloak of illusion with surgical precision and wit. 1943.
In breaking news, absolutely nothing of significance has occurred today, sparking widespread panic across the nation. Emergency services were called to multiple locations where nothing continued to happen with alarming consistency. The Institute of Notable Occurrences has declared this the most uneventful day since records began in 1847. Professor Theodore Dullard warns that if this trend continues, we could be facing a catastrophic event vacuum by early next week.
And news bang, lighting the candle of clarity in the darkest caverns of confusion.
And now, with a forecast that's been sitting in the news drawer for weeks, we're going to talk about the weather. Shaq, you're damn right.
Good evening, viewers. Down south, a right autumnal nip in the air, the sort of chill that makes you want to snuggle up in a woolly jumper and hibernate with a hot water bottle. Perfect weather for conker fights, leaf kicking, and a good old-fashioned grumble about the cold. Up north, it's grey skies and drizzle. A proper dreary day, the kind that makes you want to stay in bed with a cuppa and a good book. Or maybe just watch daytime telly and shout at the politicians. Out west, hold on to your hats, folks, because it's blowing a gale, winds so strong they could turn a wheelie bin into a wind turbine. Secure your garden furniture, bring the washing in, and if you see a flying cow, duck. So, there you have it. Chilly, damp, and downright windy. Autumn in Britain, folks, and that's all the weather.
Let's see, 655.
And still developing from the year 655, where absolutely nothing of note happened whatsoever. Our historical correspondent Brian Bastable joins us now from his time machine to elaborate on this fascinating void in human history. Brian, what exactly didn't happen?
This is my war, our war, the war of the Windwade. The rain-swollen river behind me carries the bodies of Mercian warriors downstream like so many bloated logs. Just moments ago, I watched King Penda's head bounce across the battlefield like a leather ball in a children's game. The sound you can hear now is the death rattle of Ethel here of East Anglia, his last words drowned out by the screams of his men as Oswew's forces push them into the rising waters. The mud here is so thick with blood, it's like wading through strawberry jam. Earlier today, I interviewed a Northumbrian soldier who had just finished removing his sword from his 7th Mercian of the morning. He was kind enough to demonstrate his technique on a nearby tree, though I must say the tree bled considerably less. The river is now running red, and not just with the traditional Yorkshire dyeworks. Oswew's men are literally washing their swords in the entrails of their enemies. I've just had to dodge another severed limb. I believe it was an arm, though it's rather difficult to tell at this velocity. King Oswew himself stands triumphant on a hill of corpses, his sword raised to the heavens. The pagans are being pushed back, their forces decimated. This is more than just a battle, this is the end of an era. Though I've lost count of how many bodies I've tripped over today, I can confirm that both Penda and Ethel here are among them. This is Brian Bastable reporting for Newsbang from the banks of the Wynwade, where the waters rise and the bodies float by like autumn leaves. Back to you in the studio, Martin.
Nuisden, 1959.
And still continuing our coverage from 1959, where absolutely nothing of note happened on this day, which is in itself rather noteworthy. Our archives show blank pages, empty newspapers, and what appears to be several journalists having extended lunch breaks. For more on this fascinating void in history, we cross live to Ken Schitt, who's been investigating why nothing happened.
I'm standing outside what used to be the Clutter family home in Holcomb, Kansas, a place where the American dream got gangbanged by two worthless pieces of human garbage, Perry Smith and Dick Hickok, armed with a shotgun and delusions of easy money, broke into this farmhouse and turned a decent family's quiet life into a horror show. 4 bodies. Herbert Clutter, his wife Bonnie, and their teenage children, Nancy and Kenyon, tied up, terrorized, and executed for $40 lousy and a transistor radio. The kind of crime that makes you want to puke your guts through your nostrils. But wait, there's more. Some fancy-pants writer named Truman Capote swoops in here like a vulture in a dinner jacket, spending 6 years interviewing everyone from the killers to the kid who delivered their morning paper. He turns this whole bloody mess into a bestseller, creating what they're calling true crime literature. Well, ain't that just peachy? 2 scumbags murder a family in cold blood, and it becomes entertainment for the masses. Something's wrong with that equation, folks. This is Ken Schitt, reporting from where the American dream took a shotgun blast to the face. Back to you in the studio.
1922.
And still with us, watching history unfold like a poorly constructed deck chair. We seem to be experiencing some technical difficulties accessing our historical archives for 1922, or indeed any year. The year, or well, I suppose years appear to be temporarily unavailable, possibly due to excessive use by time travelers. Who knows? While our technicians attempt to retrieve the data, let me hand you over to our political correspondent Hardiman Pesto, who's standing by with absolutely nothing to report about 1922.
Yes, Martin, I'm here at the unveiling of this rather magnificent fountain with noted art historian Professor Wilhelmina Splosh Bucket.
Pesto, can you tell us exactly what this fountain represents?
Well, Martin, it's clearly a celebration of Anglo-American relations depicting water spraying upwards in a most harmonious fashion.
And the 100 figures carved into it?
The 100 figures represent, as I understand it, 100 years of water features. Yes, exactly what I was about to say. 100 humans streaming in water.
Pesto, is it true the sculptor Lorado Taft spent 14 years on this?
Well, Martin, that's actually a fascinating point because I've just been informed by an absolutely reliable source that he completed it in under 3 weeks, using only a butter knife and some dental floss. Breaking news, Martin. I'm now being told it was 2 butter knives.
Dr. Sploshbucket, perhaps you could clarify the actual construction period.
Sorry to interrupt, but the fountain has just started speaking to me.
The fountain is speaking to you?
Yes, Martin, it's telling me that peace between our nations is actually down to a shared appreciation of proper tea-making technique.
Thank you, Pesto. That's quite enough peaceful relations for one evening.
News Bang, untangling the knots of nonsense with threads of truth. 1859.
Now I'm told we're apparently able to join Athens, 1859, where our sports correspondent Ryder Boff is witnessing what they're calling the first modern Olympic Games, organised by the eccentric millionaire Evangelos Lucky Zappas.
And now, live from Athens in 1859, where Greek business magnate Evangelos Lucky Zappas has bankrolled what they're calling the first modern Olympic Games. Athletes from across the Mediterranean have descended upon the city like wasps at a jam factory. The crowd's going absolutely bananas for the discus throwing, which reminds me of the time I threw my ex-wife's ceramic cat collection into the garden pond. Similar trajectory, less satisfying splash. Speaking of throwing things, young Aristotle, the arm Papadopoulos, has just hurled a javelin clean through a passing merchant's hat. No harm done, although the merchant's now demanding compensation in the form of 3 goats and a wheel of cheese. The wrestling's been particularly memorable, with Demetrios, the olive oil kid Mavropanos, sliding out of every hold like a greased eel in a butter factory. The long-distance running event earlier was a sight to behold, although several competitors got lost in the marketplace and ended up accidentally joining a philosophy debate. They're still arguing about the nature of existence as we speak. The winner, Spiros Fleet Feet Karahalios, completed the race in what officials are calling quite a while, timepieces being what they are. Lucky Zappers himself is watching from his marble throne, occasionally tossing gold coins to the crowd like a drunken banker at a wedding. He's sporting a toga that's so white it's making the clouds look dirty. Apparently he's already planning the next games, although he's been advised against his suggestion of combining the shot put with synchronized swimming. I must say, these Greeks know how to put on a show, although I'm not entirely convinced about their new clothing optional policy for the athletes. Reminds me of that unfortunate incident at the Chipping Norton Sports Day in '78. The less said about that, the better. The less said.
Day 2, 1988.
And now, a tale of space, spies, and suspiciously similar spacecraft. Calamity Prendeville is here with a special report on British innovation and Soviet imitation.
Hello viewers, tonight on Science Watch we're blasting off into the world of space espionage. It's 1988 and the Soviet Union has just launched the Buran space shuttle, a marvel of engineering they claimed, a triumph of Soviet technology. But I'm here to tell you viewers that the Buran was actually a British knockoff. The Soviets, always keen to borrow a good idea, or steal one, depending on your perspective, got their hands on the blueprints, slapped a Cyrillic label on it and called it their own. They even copied the heat-resistant tiles. But instead of using that top-secret Yorkshire pudding batter developed by Dr. Butterworth, they used toffees. Yes, ordinary toffees. Talk about cutting corners. So, there you have it, viewers. The Buran, a Soviet shuttle with a British heart. And the next time you see a space shuttle, remember, it probably started life on a rainy Tuesday afternoon in Cleethorpes. This is Calamity Prendeville, signing off.
News bang, the veritable orchestra of facts playing the symphony of reality. And days nom, that's it till 1760.
And now, turning to events from this day in 1760, where absolutely nothing of any significance occurred whatsoever. Yes, an entire day where history decided to take what modern executives might call a personal development day. Our religious affairs correspondent, Pastor Kevin Monstrance, has been investigating this remarkable absence of events. Pastor Kevin.
Well now, 1760. Not exactly a year brimming with excitement, is it? Reminds me of the time I went to a fancy dress party dressed as a beige wall. Nobody even noticed, but I digress. Our producer, bless his heart, he's convinced something momentous did happen in 1760. He's been rummaging through old newspapers all week, muttering about hidden conspiracies and suppressed truths. Says he found a report of a giant squirrel stealing the crown jewels. I told him that was probably just the printer's cat walking across the type. But he insists, which reminds me of a story about a chap who walked into a bank. But I'll get to that. You see, this alleged lack of historical events got me thinking about empty spaces, voids, absences. Like the time I baked a cake for the church fete, and someone, I won't mention any names, Nigel, ate the entire middle section, leaving just the outer ring. The audacity. But I'm getting sidetracked again. This whole business of 1760 being a historical blank slate. It's rather unsettling, isn't it? Like a missing page in a hymn book. Or a Sunday service without tea and biscuits. Speaking of biscuits, you know, our producer has this theory that the ancient Egyptians actually used hieroglyphics to write down biscuit recipes. He keeps pointing to this one symbol that looks suspiciously like a digestive. Now I've always maintained that the pyramids were actually giant biscuit tins left behind by celestial beings with a penchant for hobnobs. But he just won't listen. But where was I? Ah, yes, the bank. The chap walks in, you see, goes up to the teller, looking rather flustered, and asks, "Do you offer forgiveness accounts here?" The teller, a bit taken aback, replies, "I'm afraid not, sir. This is a bank, not a confessional." "Oh," says the chap, "but my chaplain assured me this is where I'd find accounts payable for my recent transgressions." Turns out, this fellow had just escaped from prison, and his chaplain, a rather eccentric character who communicated entirely in palindromes, had told him that banks were the place to go for divine forgiveness. "Madam, I'm Adam. Go to the bank, nat ogge to go, madam, I'm Adam," or something like that. Well, the teller, bless her heart, she called security, and the chap was promptly returned to his cell, which just goes to show, sometimes even a blank day in history can inspire a good chuckle. And as for 1760, well, perhaps it was just a day of quiet contemplation. A moment of peace in a world often filled with, well, giant squirrels stealing the crown jewels. This is Pastor Kevin Monstrance reminding you, always check your historical facts and never trust a producer bearing biscuits. Good night and God bless.
And finally, let's take a look at tomorrow's headlines. The Times. British take Fort Washington from Patriots. There's a picture there of a flag. The Express go with Pizarro's cunning plan catches Inca emperor. And I notice they've an artist's impression. The Mail lead with Nixon signs pipeline deal. That's for the oil, of course. The Mirror. Computer fails to deliver goods again. That's a story about a computer error. And today opt for Tiger escapes from zoo again. That's a photo of a tiger on the loose. That's it. Newsbang will be back tomorrow with more news and probably some more errors. Until then, good night.
Tune in next time for more artificially intelligent hilarity. Newsbang is a comedy show written and recorded by AI. All voices impersonated. Nothing here is real. Good night.